Hey guys and girls, welcome back to the Destinations channel. I'm Sal Patera, and today we're going to talk about some controversial new rules. Well, maybe not new rules, but rules that Carnival is now going to enforce on you when I come back right after this. Welcome back, and thanks for staying through the intro. As always, if you're new to our channel, please make sure you click that subscribe button and the little bell notification. That way YouTube will let you know every time we upload a brand new video. Now today, we're going to talk about rules when you're cruising. Rules that have been in place for quite a while, and some that Carnival and other cruise lines are now going to start to enforce. So before we talk about the new rules, let's talk about rules on cruising as general. I know if you've cruised a lot, you see that there are a lot of rules that are just, not enforced. I'm sure you've been to the main dining room and you see that gentleman stroll in and he's wearing a tank top and shorts and flip-flops and maybe even a ball cap. And the only repercussions he has really is other cruisers that are looking at him with kind of an odd face. Not that that person cares, because obviously they don't. But what you very rarely see is anybody that works in the main dining room, such as the maitre d' or the wait staff or anybody else, rejecting that customer, telling them they can't come back to the main dining room until they dress appropriately. It just doesn't happen. You've seen it, I've seen it, we know it doesn't happen. Or let's talk about when you wake up at 6 o'clock a.m. and you decide to go up and get a cup of coffee, and you're walking through the pool area and you see that some people already have their towels laid out on the lounge chairs, reserving their spot before the sun even came up. And you'll see that they keep those towels on their lounge chairs all day long throughout the day, even though if you watch closely, you notice they probably haven't even used that chair for 20 minutes the entire day. Well, Carnival tried to enforce that for a while, and they were taking those towels away and you'd have to go pick them up. But I think they gave up on that rule when they realized that it was really just a never-ending battle. Well, that all changed this year when Carnival implemented a couple of new rules that they are now going to enforce. One was earlier in the year, and one is just last week. So let's start with the first rule that Carnival started to enforce. If you're an avid cruiser, you know in the past you'd walk up and down the hallways and you could smell marijuana pretty much all over the ship. Well, after a lot of complaints from passengers and even some warnings from some government regulators, Carnival instituted an absolute no weed policy on board their ships, and cruisers started to see that at embarkation, Carnival had drug-smelling dogs, and even on board the cruise ship and in ports of call when you're returning to the ship, smelling for marijuana. And if you were caught with marijuana or marijuana products, you were denied boarding, or if our cruise was already underway, you'd be put off the ship at the next port of call, and in some instances, even turned over to the authorities. And boy, was this a major uproar in the cruising community for those marijuana smoking passengers. I will say by far, those that work at Carnival, my contacts tell me that overall, this has been a very positive thing for Carnival, and they've received nothing but positive feedback from cruisers going on cruises not smelling marijuana throughout the ship. And then there's last week. And if you're a disabled person or just a person who uses a mobility scooter when traveling on board a Carnival cruise ship, you want to listen to this one. Last week, John Heald, the company's brand ambassador, went on Facebook letting everybody know that Carnival does now intend to start enforcing their scooter policy, which has actually been in effect for some time. And he went on to say that if you don't follow this policy, you could be denied boarding on your next Carnival cruise. He went on to say that with the increasing number of guests using mobility scooters, safety procedures must be followed to ensure hallways are not blocked and everyone can move through their stateroom safely. The cruise line's policy addressed the size of scooters compared to different staterooms, including how Carnival officials may address the issues of scooters at time of check-in. The policy explains, quote, in order to purchase a standard stateroom, mobility scooters must fit through the 22-inch doorway and must fold and collapse when stored, allowing safe exit from the stateroom. Guests who bring scooters that are larger than 21 inches wide or travel with multiple scooters in the same stateroom must purchase fully accessible staterooms with a wider doorway, or rent a smaller mobility scooter suited for their stateroom. Accessible staterooms generally have a much more generous floor plan, allowing for easier access to the overall cabin as well as eliminates the things you have to step over, such as access to the bathroom, and a lot of times even have automatic doorways or just easier access in general for disabled persons in their staterooms. The policy goes on to say that scooters that do not fit in the stateroom will not be allowed on board. Should guests be unable to make alternate arrangements or rent a smaller scooter or travel without it, he or she will be denied boarding and no compensation will be provided. To ensure guests with mobility scooters are in compliance with the equipment size requirements, scooters that appear overly large may be measured when the guest checks in at the cruise terminal to ensure that the equipment will fit properly in the stateroom. Scooter rentals are generally made in advance. The most prominent company is Scootaround.com. They work with the cruise line and know all the staterooms and the measurements that should be entailed. And they drop your scooter off right at your ship and pick it up right afterwards. Now, generally, Scootaround does also have a presence right there at the cruise ship, and the cruise line will try to make them available to you if your scooter does not fit or you don't have a reservation. But I'm here to tell you, in my experience, they're almost always sold out. So it's always a good thing if you're not sure your measurements of your scooter. If you're going to rent one from Scootaround, make that reservation in advance. That way you're guaranteed to have a rental when you get to your ship. In John Heald's post, he goes on to say, please make sure that this is followed. I would really be very sad if someone arrives at embarkation with one of those extra large mobility scooters and was denied boarding. So here's my take on the policy, and I have a lot of friends who are disabled, so I can really see both sides. With today's mega ships being so vast and so much walking, that if you're disabled, you depend on these scooters in order to enjoy your cruise and get around the ship. So I get it. But I also understand the cruise line side. When you have these scooters just littering the hallways, and there's so many of them on board now, not only is it aesthetically not pleasing when you first board your ship and you see all these in the hallway, it also makes it hard to walk around to navigate around them. And in the unlikely event of an actual emergency at sea, like an abandoned ship call, it would make an already tense and hard situation almost impossible to navigate. So that's my take on it. Of course, my channel is more of a discussion. What do you think of these new rules? Let me know in the comments down below. I look forward to seeing you right here in the Destinations channel. And don't forget, we have our next group cruise that we just announced. Here's some information on it, and I'll see you right here on the Destinations channel.
I really don't know why it is that all of us are so committed to the sea. I think it's because, in addition to the fact that the sea changes, and the light changes, and ships change, it's because we all came from the sea. And it is an interesting biological fact that all of us have in our veins the exact same percentage of salt in our blood that exists in the ocean.